G'day and welcome to my video on National Study Germany, looking at the syllabus first up as a bit of an intro. You'll note for each of the 4 sections of the syllabus that we're doing, there is a principal focus. Okay, so this is basically what the main point of the whole section is. And for this one, you guys are investigating the key features and the key issues in the history of Germany during 1918 to 1939. So let's have a look at what these key features and issues are and talk a bit about how we actually investigate those by looking at certain topics. Alright, so here are the individual key features and issues. Note, for those people that are a little bit slower amongst you, Germany is the country we're looking at. You'll note the dates, so that's the end of World War I and just before the start of World War II. Alright, that's supposed to be a 2 there. Let's just do a little 2. So, these are the key features and issues. So, successes and failures of democracy, nature and role of nationalism. We'll go through all of them. I guess I want to talk about 2 things first of all. First of all, let's move this up a little and just get it in there. And alright, hopefully you can all see that still. Note, a couple of them are kind of standalone, if that makes sense. So if we look at, say, the influence of the German army here, so what we'll look at is how did the German army influence different events throughout that time period. Okay, so they might have looked at, they might have been really influential here, and then the way that they influenced things changed later on here, and then by the end, obviously, they're very influential just before they go to war. So that's one example. You'll note a couple of things that we're looking at. 3 mainly is this idea of nationalism first of all, okay, then racism, and finally Nazism. Because we're asked to do 2 things. We're asked to look at and investigate the nature and role, and then the nature and the influence, and then the nature and the impact. Okay, so we're looking at the nature of different ideas, okay, the nature of nationalism in Germany during that time period, the nature of racism in Germany. Okay, so not just racism in the 21st century, but what did racism look like in Germany during that time period? Okay, so these ideas aren't, we'll spend 1 lesson looking at each of them. All right, these are ideas that we'll keep coming back to again and again and again. Okay, you might have one event, all right, and in that one event, you might be able to look at multiple areas. Okay, we'll say, well, what can we see about German racism in this event? What can we see about the impact of Nazism in this event? All right, some of these might have to do with 10 or 11 syllabus dot points, whereas others, for example, this one, right at the end there, is only really 1 or 2, and that's right at the end. Okay, so the point of this video is you can go back and listen to this again, but hopefully that's just a good intro to get you thinking about the key features and issues that will drive our looking at Nazi Germany. Okay, so here we come to the next part, which is students learn about. So these are the actual events or concepts that we're going to be looking at. There's 4 of them. Weimar Republic, the rise of Nazis as a power, and then you look at Nazism in power, and you look at Nazi foreign policy, basically. Yeah, and we'll look at all of them. For this one, I guess the main thing that we look at with looking at Weimar Republic is the key feature and issue, which is quite important, really, and that's looking at why I guess it's the successes and failures of democracy. Okay, that's kind of the key thing that we're looking at here, and we're going to look at it in a couple of ways. First of all, we'll look at this idea of how did this actually come to be, how did it actually go and become a Weimar Republic, all right, as well as the impact of the Treaty of Versailles, which we've already looked at. That had a huge impact on how the Weimar Republic was able to function. Then we'll look at problems throughout the time period, which is the next one, obviously, and finally the collapse of it during the 29 to 33 period. Alright, I guess there's two little bookends, right, in this period, which is the Treaty of Versailles and the Great Depression. Okay, so a whole lot of stuff happens in between, and we'll look at how this one impacted them and how this one impacted them, and look at basically why democracy failed. Alright, why did democracy fail in Germany? And there's a whole heap of reasons for it, and there's a whole lot of good old historiography, if I can spell it correctly. Alright, there's a whole lot of historiography with historians saying, I think the main thing that made it fail was this, and others disagree and say, no, it was that, etc., etc. So that's the first one, looking at the Weimar Republic, and those 4 dot points there, and we'll look at that, and that's what we'll start with. Next we have Rise of the Nazi Party. It's a very simple idea. We look at the Nazi Party right at the start, back in 1923. We look at what they believed, what was their as a party, what was their platform, and basically we follow through their rise to power. Okay, so we look at 23 through to 33. That's kind of when they got power. And then, for this period of 33 to 34, how they consolidated power. Okay, so they've got it here. How do they make sure they kept it? How did they get rid of opposition? How did they get the army on side? How did they make sure that people didn't speak out against them? How did they make sure that certain laws that they wanted and certain things that they needed came to pass? So this is basically looking at laws that were passed, the whole idea of them taking part in elections, and kind of coercing people to vote for them, as well as using propaganda very, very well in order to sell what their ideology was to the German people. Next we'll look at Nazis in power. Okay, so this idea of how did the Nazis actually run Germany once they were in power. So obviously this is from 1933 through to 39. Okay, and a couple of ideas. The first one, what did Hitler do as the leader? How did he actually run the state? Was he hands-on as a leader? Did he let other people do it? Did he delegate? Then you've got this idea, and we'll look at this. This is also big H historiography, totalitarianism. So people will say, was Nazi Germany a totalitarian state? So we'll look at what makes up a totalitarian state, and we'll look at was it, what aspects of it were, or what aspects of it weren't, etc., etc. Then we'll look at this whole idea of opposition to Nazism, and how they managed to kind of repress it. Alright, so obviously they used propaganda, terror, repression. The SA, they were stormtroopers, kind of like a paramilitary group. Alright, I'm pretty sure that stands for Sturmarbeit. So they were kind of like the muscle, and the SS were like the really psycho-fanatical guys. And then we'll look at two things. We'll look at social and cultural life. What was it like to actually live in Nazi Germany as a normal German person? Okay, Hitler Youth, so that's kind of like a massive youth movement that started. What was it like for women? What role did the church play in religion? You had an official Nazi church. What about those ministers that stood up against them and disappeared? People like, what's his name, Martin Niemöller and Dietrich Bonhoeffer and other guys. And finally, we'll look at their racial policy. Okay, so they brought in a whole lot of basically hate laws against Jews, and these were racial laws that were designed to stamp out any kind of opposition from Jews and to make sure that all Jews were controlled and weren't able to take part in German life. So we'll look at all of this as a whole, and how successful their policies were. Why did they bring in these policies? Why was there propaganda? What was the propaganda like? Things like that. Finally, we have Nazi foreign policies. So basically, we've kind of looked inward at Germany itself. Okay, so here's Germany. We've looked inward, and now we're going to look outward. So we're going to look at kind of how did the Nazis relate to other countries, to England, to France, to Russia, etc., etc. So what was the nature? There's another one, like from our key features and issues. What was the nature of their foreign policy? Okay, how did they actually treat these guys? All right. What were the aims and strategies that they actually tried to do? What were they trying to do? Were they trying to build alliances with them? Were they trying to set them off against one another? What would they do? Were they using fear? Were they trying to make themselves seem big and scary, or what? And finally, the impact of ideology on the foreign policy. Okay, so the Nazis strongly believed their ideology. Okay, what impact did this ideology have on the relationship between these countries? Alright, did it have a huge impact? Did it have a small impact? Etc., etc. Note to September 1939. Why is that? Because that's when World War II broke out. Okay, this is usually, at the end, and it's a huge topic and there's a lot of content, so we don't usually get to spend heaps and heaps of time doing this one in particular. And finally, just a very quick note, throughout the unit, when we're looking at different parts of society, we'll split it up into three ways: political, social, and economic. That's basically just, I guess, an easy way to look at it. So obviously, political, we're looking at how decisions are made, okay? Obviously, government, taxes, bureaucracy, laws. So looking at the impact of laws and how, I guess, power. I guess power is a big one. So the army, how Hitler rose to power using the law, using democracy, using elections, how he made deals with the Reichswehr, which is the army, etc., etc. Next you have social. All right, that's looking at all kind of things like family life, looking at the role of women. The Nazis had pretty important things to say about how women should act in society. It's looking at the youth, it's looking at kids, looking at the church and religion. Okay, so that's also the social aspect. And finally we have economic, which is quite important. So that's all looking at looking at debt, looking at taxes, which is something the Nazis used a lot in order to get people on side. So for example, they wanted people to have family as the kind of the part of society should be in. So people that had families with just one wage earner and the mum at home, well, they had less taxes, so they got them on side. Also, obviously, we'll look at how the Nazis used money to get different institutions, for example, the church on side. That's a backwards arrow, whoops. By obviously taxing them more or taxing them less depending on where they were. So three different ways of looking at society, and we'll do different tables and stuff: political, social, and economic. And I'll say something like, how did that impact society politically, socially, and economically? Alright guys, thanks for listening to this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and it's our little intro to the syllabus and intro to the topic as well. Catch ya in class. Signing out. Wimble.